I grew up in Victoria on a farm, and I lived there for most of my life, not knowing exactly who I was because my mother hated me. Um, I've just found out recently she was in residential school, and she disliked women totally. And so I had a wonderful childhood on the farm, but not with her. And then I moved to Surrey and I met this man and we got married and we had three wonderful children. And then he was in a near fatal car accident. And I tried to nurse him back. He was brain damaged beyond. He lives in a home now in Windsor. So I ended up raising my children by myself. And we lost our business that we had together, and so I started another business. And I became a special needs teacher and was running special needs daycare before and after school. And one day I came home and the sheriffs were there, and they were, or first of all, my employees were saying their checks had bounced, and I thought that was kind of odd because it was like $30,000 in one account. My kids all had, I was making really good money, so I made sure all my kids had accounts, and they were all drained. And, my personal accounts were gone, and my business accounts were gone, and when I came home, the sheriff was taking everything from the house. And I'm going, what's going on? And they say, well, you owe the government, and you owe all these bills in Ontario. So there's no law between Ontario and BC. I never divorced my husband because I loved him, and being a car accident wasn't his fault and being brain damaged. But his sister, like my husband's name began with the letter D, and so did hers. So she went out and got credit cards because I had great credit. She got all these credit cards. She went out and bought a truck. She went out and bought a boat and trailers and TVs, and then started selling when she had no money. And I had to pay all those bills. And so the government stepped in because, I don't know, something in Ontario, and they just wiped me out. So I was on the streets. At that point, that was the first time that I was on the streets, but I got my son into a townhouse because I had some secret money hidden away in some other accounts. So my son and his girlfriend who were living with us, I got them a townhouse, but I took my two younger ones over to the island to live at my parents. And so I lost that business, so I decided I just didn't like the island anymore, and I'd already been introduced to, I was a weekend warrior for drugs, so I was using cocaine to keep awake and deal with my problems. Not while I was working at the school, so this is after. And so I came over here and I got a job in a fish plant, and it was really long hours, and somebody says, well, there's really good rent down here, you can get an apartment for $350. And I moved into the Marie Gomez, and somebody introduced me to crystal meth. And I used it just as to keep awake for the long hours at work, and I was a functioning addict for probably about a year, sending massive amounts of money because I was working so many hours to my two children back home, which I found out my mother never gave to them because she hated me that much, and told them that I had abandoned them. And I couldn't handle that, and the drugs kept taking over and over. So I quit work and just started actually living out of my car, and then I lost my car, and then I got another apartment, and became life of down here, using crack cocaine and crystal meth. And I met this really nice guy, so I thought, and we moved in together, and we were together for I guess we were together for a few months, and we abstained from sex because I had been in a relationship just before I met him, and I had been tested, and he went and got tested, and he said he was fine. And so we'd abstained. So we were two consenting adults, thought we were going to be in a monogamous relationship. So of course we had sex, and for the weekend, and he got an urgent phone call from his doctor's office that said, you got to come in right away, it's an emergency. And so we went in and saw the doctor, and they said, we misfiled your lab results, you're HIV positive. I didn't know that I couldn't get HIV right away, so I just assumed I had it right away, and that's when I started injecting drugs. And by using that, and then the Gomez was being torn down, And because we were into drugs so heavily, we couldn't get housing, so we ended up on the streets homeless. And from then I was homeless for quite a while, and then we got another apartment, but we smoked the rent, as they say. We got evicted from there and ended up homeless again, and ended up being on the news and everything about the homelessness. This was during the Olympics when they were coming to Vancouver. So we got put into an SRO on Water Street called the Gastown Hotel, which was really, really tiny and had more bugs and rodents than it had living outside. And from there, I straightened out my life and moved out of there. I have awesome housing. I've left that abusive man, and I'm now working and
Cool.
I got awesome housing. I can remember sleeping in doorways. You know, I remember security guards coming around and saying, you know, you might want to put cardboard underneath you to keep you warm. I gotta remember I was in my 40s, late 40s, when I became homeless. At one point, and of course when I was homeless and I was with my ex-partner, we had a dog. So we lived a lot in parks. We tried to be very respectful of the areas that we were in. You know, like sometimes the police would come and kick us out, which is really horrible. But at other times, you know, when we were down near Strathcona Park, we were sleeping in the park, they'd come and say there's a soccer team coming in or something, it's going to be something early, you know, and they were very respectful of us and we were respectful of them, so we just pack everything up. We lived out of grocery carts. We actually had 2 of them, which had all our belongings, and then as winter approached, we found an empty, really contaminated with a lot of debris and chemicals. But it was a space, there was 11 other people living there, and there was some trees there, so we actually got a tent and put up in between the trees with lots of tarps, so when it got rainy and everything in the middle of the night, you're getting the rain off so it doesn't collapse. We had an ironing board for a kitchen table, and we bought a little propane gas heater so that we could actually cook. We actually, it's illegal, but we did have fires. We had a fire pit, so we did a lot of cooking outdoors. The businesses around the area were really good to us. They gave us ice so we could have a cooler to keep things. But at that time, to survive, we were binning, and that's how we got a lot of our food. And we had like a place on Commercial that would give us a bag of their leftover pizza from the weekend or something. And, you know, we'd feed everybody at the, you know, we actually became a community almost in this field. Looking after each other. If somebody had a surplus of food or found out there was extra sandwiches, like we made sure everyone, you know, partaked, and so it was actually like a little community. A lot of the barriers are like, because there was a newspaper article written about us when we were homeless, and people were saying, well, just go get a job, and they don't understand, like, we live a different life. Like, we don't know what day of the week it is because we don't have a calendar. We don't have an alarm clock to get up in the morning. We don't have a bathroom, you know, or a shower. Like, to have a shower, I would actually come to the Downtown Community Health Clinic to have a shower. There was a washroom near the park where we'd sort of, you know, but who's going to accept you when you're smelling like smoke? You know, I mean, we did take our clothes to the laundromat. We tried to do the best we could to be human, but actually homelessness actually dehumanizes you a bit, I guess, because, or I guess society does, not being homeless. But society looks down on you, you know, they don't realize that you're trying your hardest and that you do want to make your life better, but no one will let you take those steps to do it because they're seeing you where you are now. And I think that was one of the biggest barriers to get across, to break, is to say we are human beings. We're somebody's mother, we're somebody's daughter, you know, and, you know, we're human, and yet you're treated as an outcast a lot when you're homeless. And then you have to stand in lines to get food, and we call it the Hastings Street Shuffle because everybody shuffles in the line, and you know where all the food is. So you spend all your time trying to get enough food, and I was really skinny back then, trying to get, so you know, you go here and get sandwiches and soup, and then you go to the next line up, and you know they have soup or sandwiches there, and then, you know, or a loaf of bread, and that you have to collect that so that you could actually have something on the weekends, or if you could have dinner that night, because most of the handouts of foods are just at lunchtime. So you learned how to go to all these different places and collect food and then try and store it. So that, and that's another barrier. If you're spending all that time just trying to survive, how are you supposed to try and find somewhere to live? Absolutely no sources of income. We did collect social assistance. um, which of course, when you're an addict, we did, actually, we were sort of responsible addicts because we would buy food, but then you go into a grocery store and they see how you're dressed or look, and of course all of a sudden you've got security on you or you're getting kicked out. They automatically assume that you're stealing, and it makes you very uncomfortable to go into some place that is a grocery store with security following up and down every aisle, to the point where I'd go, here I am, you want to follow me, just follow me, I'm going down this aisle, and try to make fun of it. But it's really degrading, other than recycling, because we would actually go out and collect bottles, and that was about the only other source of income. That was it. I think the dog was about the most helpful thing, because animals have unconditional love. So any income that we had, we made sure it was for the animal first. And it was having that comfort at night with her, except for the night she caught a skunk, but that's a whole other story of stinking up the tent. But that gave us laughter, and I think and of course I was still addicted to drugs during then, so drugs was I think that took the pain away. So I think maybe we did use drugs to numb ourselves a lot.